really significant for people. And I'd like to share a quote from the research that I think reflects that really beautifully. At the start of Gaia, COVID had just hit, and the experience of being so together across the planet, while alone in our dwellings, was magnificent. I felt hope that our species could come together at a moment of urgency, and that this togetherness would create a path for deep systemic transformation that we need everywhere. And then to have the George Floyd case rip racism open and have a place to learn about and discuss absencing helped push me forward in my own growth. Another person then commented, "It is tapping into the pain and possibility at such scale globally that is making a difference." And so coming together in the moment was really significant. And then I would add to that, that it wasn't, just coming together, but it was coming together in a particular way. And that sense of interconnectedness wasn't experienced sort of on a cognitive level particularly, although people could see it and understand it, but rather what was significant was that it was felt and experienced. So we would talk about that as people really experiencing and being the social field. So another piece that I'd like to share on that is this. Connecting with such a broad global collective of people passionate about real conscious change has added to my already strong commitment to leaning in. Experiencing so much authentic leadership calls me forward, emboldens me. Seeing and hearing people from all over the world gave me a sense of the global scale of this kind of engagement. My body, heart, mind is part of a large evolutionary movement of body, heart, minds. And this is super inspiring. I can take these Gaia relationships as a big, encouraging embrace from which to see, feel, and dare to act in service to all life. And I think the tail bit of that quote sort of touches on the final point, which is really about this relationship between connecting with the social field, connecting with the collective, and personal individual action. And that's quite a complex, dynamic relationship, and it really fascinates me personally. But I think the piece that I would bring in here, which really surfaced, was for many people, they started to think about their own work and their own action very much within the context of this broader whole. And it's really, again, really beautifully articulated here. Someone shared, "I now can see that having a global vision is crucial. An understanding of the principle of the oneness of humanity that is like an umbrella over everything we do. I also see how that vision can inform my local activities, starting in my own family and then in my own town." So those are just a few of the pieces that came from the first leg of the journey that feel really kind of relevant and live for us as we move into this next leg. And back over to you, Antoinette.
Eva, thank you so much for that. Just bringing in all of those voices for us, just hearing each of these quotes and components of what we've been holding together is a strong reminder for me, and getting to hear the pieces of it again just now, it just it brought back all of these different lights about what it really takes to bring us all together, and kind of holding that deepened sense of connection and global vision. So I would like to pass it over now to Otto for further framing of that vision. And just to say about Otto, I think many of us already know, but Otto is the founder and chair of the Presencing Institute. He's also a senior lecturer at MIT and an author of Theory U and Leading from the Emerging Future. I could keep going, but he has been holding the articulation of this vision for us, and it has been really powerful throughout the entire Gaia journey to have this framing of what our current moment is holding for us. So thank you, Otto, for holding that for and with us, and I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Antoinette, and hello, everyone. And I'm not sure I'm talking about the vision really, but maybe just connecting to what Eva, you were talking about. So the capacity to feel our web of global interconnectedness, I think that's really something that we all felt to a certain degree, and it's like an important phenomenon that emerged along our GAIA journey so far. And you also talked about the coming together in the moment, which really is was the main gesture that we try to practice really during the GAIA journey. And since we'll also practice a little bit of that today, I just wanted to set the stage for that with a few observations on the current moment, really. And I will do that from the perspective where I am, speaking from, which is the United States, and the special period that we are going through, and just sharing with you 5 observations on the election process so far. So the first one is, so we can use it as a lens to look at the current moment. And the current moment, of course, is something where we all feel that we live in a moment where something is dying and ending, and something else is wanting to be born. And using this current experience of the election is one particular angle into this larger conversation. The larger conversation is really, what is it that's ending and dying in our relationships and our way of collectively enacting structures, societal structures, and what is it that's wanting to be born, and how can we become an instrument for bringing that into reality more fully? So the first observation really is about, and to some degree, that's the most important foundation for everything, which is what did not happen. What did not happen is 50,000 people that Donald Trump called for to show up and intimidate voters. So we didn't see violence, we didn't see breakdowns, we didn't see the whole system collapsing and the country sinking into a civil war, or into a violent confrontation, which to some degree had been anticipated. And seeing thousands, tens of thousands of Republicans and Democrats working shoulder to shoulder to process and count all the votes is really something very moving. And in spite of all the obstacles and monkey wrenches that are thrown into this process, the process is continuing, and it will yield a result. So when you look at that, what's happening over the past 48 hours, it is a nutshell of what has happened over the past 4 years, which is the democratic institutions of this country, the democratic foundations of this republic are bending, but not breaking, and will finally bounce back and bounce forward. And that's the first observation. The second one is the country is still divided. Trump in 2020 got 5 million more votes than in 2016. So remember, 2016, you're voting as a Trump voter for an outsider with the promise to disrupt the process of the establishment. Now, 4 years later, voting for the same person, 5 million more people, is telling us something, that something deeper is broken in our system, in our country. And of course, one person, the current occupant of the White House, is not the problem. The problem is the underlying system. So we see a country divided around race, around gender, around age, generation, urban versus rural, and also around identity. And that's what we got to work on. So when we now look at and that's the third observation, at the deeper issues, I tried to describe that in a recent blog from last week, kind of in terms of post-truth, post-democracy, post-humanity. But what it really is, when you try to describe that in simple terms, so why is that, right? The 5 million more. It is because of a structural exclusion of economic opportunity, exclusion of democratic opportunity to participate in the community, an exclusion of educational opportunity. As you all know, or maybe the educational system here is really replicating and cementing the class society. It's not allowing you to move forward, upward. So, and when you double click on these things, you come to these conditions, post-truth, which is, so you become susceptible. You become, you can be sidetracked by the conditions of post-truth, which is really the sowing of doubt that we see against democracy, that we see against climate science, that we see effectively being done in so many cases. Post-democracy is really the architectures of separation that are being amplified through and where the in so many cases, and that lead communities that used to stick together to break into subcomponents that no longer can talk to each other. And the third condition is really about fueling fanaticism and fear. So that's the piece of work that we have. And that's what we need to embrace and transform. And that's also what we collectively enact, right? That's kind of what the mirror in that we have to look one way or another. Number 4, the gift of Trump. What's the gift of Trump, and what's the gift of this election? The gift of Trump is our awareness around these issues, right? So we had a lot of illusions before. They are gone. And the gift of the election is that no one any longer believes that the solution to all these problems is going to descend onto us from the White House or from DC, from the Capitol. No, we need to step into our own agency if we want to address these things at the source. That's the only way, and that's what brings us together here. And to transform, and that's kind of the last observation and kind of the other piece that I wrote about in the blog, to transform these deeper issues, I think we have to practice listening with humility, right? Humble leadership, as Ed Schein would say. We have to practice sensing from the field, right? Sensing that moves outside of our own bubble. And we have to practice how to really fully activate our own agency, our own action confidence, our own capacity to step into new territories. And that, of course, is something we really cannot do alone, where we need each other, where we need these new architectures of connection that, Eva, you were talking about, that we have been in part practicing. So in many ways, GAIA is also a practice field, right, for these deeper capacities, so that we can explore them while doing and then take them into the rest of our life. And with that notion of doing, I want to now turn it over to Arana Ayashi, co-founder of the Presencing Institute. Arana is also a meditation teacher, a dancer, and the inventor of the originator of social presencing theater, which over the past decade probably has one of the most important social innovations that came out of the Presencing Institute's work. Arana, over to you.
Thank you, Otto, and thank you so much for your reflections. And thank you to all of you who come to join us for this time together. We really appreciate people taking the time and joining with others to reflect on sort of what our life is about at this moment. So we like to include, and many of us have some kind of daily awareness practice, some way that we can cultivate our own inner knowing, our own inner wisdom. And in this gathering, we would also like to offer a brief time together. So if I could ask you to just sit in your chair in such a way that your feet can be flat on the ground, that would be perfect, with a little bit of upright but relaxed back, so that we have a naturally wakeful body. And just to start with this sense of embodiment, embodied presence, that whatever we feel right now, and for many of us, certainly in the US, this is has been for so many people quite a stressful time. But whatever we feel, whatever is coming up for us, that we honor that and that we let that be grounded in the body. Let it, whatever we feel, dwell and rest in our own body. And that our body is resting on this good Mother Earth body. That we let some of our thinking and whirling around of thoughts, whirling around of ideas, of hopes and fears, we take a little bit of time to suspend that, to let that go, and to simplify so that our attention can rest really on just inhabiting this body, feeling its posture, feeling its feet on the ground. We feel where we sit. We feel that the body's breathing. And we can let our experience just be simple and resting, grounded. We notice this sense of kind of accommodation, that we can accommodate whatever we feel. We don't need to make war on ourselves, but can have a friendly attitude toward our own experience. We notice our own basic sense of open-mindedness, open-heartedness. So we take a moment with our heart. So we feel how much we appreciate this life, this moment that we can be together, that we can engage with other people in conversation that's strengthening and nourishing. Not everyone has that opportunity. We appreciate that we have health and some basic sense of well-being. And we also note that not only does our heart hold some appreciation and gratefulness, but it also holds tremendous sadness for all of the suffering that's going on this planet, and for the planet itself and all the beings on the planet. So we notice this heartbrokenness, this tender-heartedness for so many people who've been affected by the pandemic, lost loved ones, lost jobs. By all sorts of political, social, racial injustice and violence. By, as Otto mentioned, the political inability for so many of us to really have this humble listening to one another. So we feel this fullness of heart. We notice the sky above our head, full of possibility, full of space. And we also feel the strength, our own strength of our back. Many of us feel the strength of our ancestors and teachers, and their sense of the goodness of a human being, the basic goodness that not only we individually express, but that as a social body, all of us together, as a social body, we hold this basic wisdom, basic goodness and sanity, basic creative force. And the confidence that together we can co-create a good world for our children and grandchildren. So we take a moment to just rest with our own presence and an appreciation for our social body and social field. Thank you so much for taking the time to just be human.
Thank you, Arwana, for inviting us into that space within ourselves and beyond. I'd like to invite us into that humble listening space that Arwana just mentioned. And to do that, we'll listen into the voices from the field, and we'll deepen our sensing capacity by using this form of listening that allows us to both sense into the heart space and sense into the place of possibility. And so much of what we've been holding together, it's actually a global holding. And I was speaking with Katie and John, who I will introduce or bring in just a moment, and had this feeling of, what are we going to do with Gaia? This is a co-initiation moment or re-co-initiation. What is it really? And sitting with them and hearing their stories in Western Australia, in Noongar country, And in their movement of Danju Korlini, the feeling of walking together into the future and what that can mean and look like. And what is really needed is sensing beyond our kind of news media outlets and the information that we're getting while we're isolated in place. And that is really what inspired these GAIA sessions, to really listen to the voices from the field. So I have referred to these two as what feel like my siblings across the earth, and co-holders of this Gaia journey, and really part of our holding team, but holding the planet together. So I pass it over to you, Katie and John.
Thank you. My sister, I guess I should say, Antoinette, great to be with you. Great to be with you, Otto, Arowana, Eva. And hello from Wajak Noongar country in Western Australia. Sending special thoughts and good wishes to all of you in America at the moment. We know it's a time of real disruption, as it is globally for other reasons right now. And I wanted to just say, by word of introduction, to the project that we've been involved in, and you'll hear from one of the leaders of that project in just a moment, that if we are talking disruption, then we are privileged to be here on this country with the oldest civilization on the planet, who know disruption very well, who over the last 80,000 years or more have navigated through major disruptions, ice ages, and much more, and have come out of that strong, have come out of that now through 200 years of colonization or more in this country. And through all of that, through having experienced the real, as you mentioned, Otto, the exclusion, the economic exclusion, the democratic exclusion and educational exclusions, despite all that, have remained strong, and who now have invited us on a journey of Danju Kuling, of one translation is walking together into a better future, a co-creating of a better future together, through overcoming those divisions, through overcoming the separations and the disconnections that we feel between ourselves and the natural world, between ourselves and one another, and between ourselves and ourselves, as you put it, Otto, the three divides. And they've invited us to do so through also overcoming the voices of doubt, of cynicism and of hatred and of fear, by having open minds, kind hearts, and strong spirits, as Dr. Noel Nannup puts it, one of the Danju Kuling leaders. And so if they can model that, then that for me is an invitation to do my utmost, to walk with them, to support this project, to support social renewal in this place and elsewhere in the world. Because if we're talking social renewal here, at least, then we have to acknowledge the blueprint for social, cultural, and ecological harmony that Aboriginal people have had in this place for more than 80,000 years, as I said earlier. So great to be with you all. I acknowledge also the First Nations people of the places that you join us from too. And over to Katie to introduce one of the four leaders of Danju Kuling.
Hi everyone, it is wonderful to be with you, and I think what we feel here is this, that Gaia gives us this breadth of global connection, and just like there is a gift of trump, we feel like we have a deep gift of place, and it gives us a great anchoring and depth. So yeah, it's an honour to introduce one of the Danju Kuling leaders, Carol Innes. She is many things to us. She sits on just about every board you can imagine, but two of those boards, one is our National Art Gallery, our State Art Gallery, and the other one is Reconciliation WA. So a lot of her work involves leading a lot of our healing around reconciliation and bringing us together to actually work out how to do that. I know that for us, she's one of our go-to people. So as soon as we're trying to understand and make sense of the world and what is happening and how we can navigate through that in a really strong way, then we go to Carol. So we hand over to Carol Innes to share what she's sensing about this moment, and what she can also share with us about how she's responding to this moment. And yeah, we've learned so much from that. So I'll hand over to Carol now.
Thank you, Katie and John. Thank you, Eva. Thank you, Antoinette and Ariana and Otto. Katie and John, who are the left and right of me. Nyanjurup and Nija, Wajak Noongar country, Wajak Noongar Buja. Nyanjurup and Ning, Ni, Wanging. So I'm happy to be sitting here, listening and talking with you. It was quite a grounding to stop and listen and just be in the moment. And thank you, Ariana, for grounding us. I was just thinking about the position in which the Danji cooling process has allowed us to be a part of. And whilst we are talking about the disruption, I was thinking about the opportunity that has been created for us, in that we are sitting at the table with the governor of the state. We are meeting with the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs in Parliament House. We are delivering and talking and working with policymakers of government. We are bringing community to the table of all sectors of government. Now, if this is a disruption, I like this disruption. And one of the most powerful things that we've learned through this disruption in Australia alone, not just in Western Australia, is that our First Nations people, or our first peoples of this nation, have managed this pandemic in the most powerful way. And we have survived through the most amazing time. And I remember calling into one of the communities to find out how they would be were managing. And they said, it's okay, Carol, we just go to bush. We will be fine. We'll be looking after ourselves and we don't need anything. And that's what they did. And it was a really, so on reflection, I think I like the disruption. Actually, I really love it because it's allowed us to stop, all of us, to think about the world in many facets and the oneness of what we need to do to heal the world and the future we want to see for our families and ourselves and where we are in the space in which we're giving. So I feel grateful for the time that we've had in disruption time, because it's allowed us to become to an equal space that we've never been before. A space where we all had to look after ourselves, our family, and our community in a way that we've never done before. In a way that it's not just where we are, it's many communities across many places. And the sadness and the pain that people have felt without having to say farewell to the loved ones is the pain and the sadness we've felt since colonisation in this country. And a big part of where I feel the disruption and the gifts we get given sometimes allows us to keep moving forward. And on reflection, I think a big part of what we haven't done is to appreciate, is to be grateful for what we have in front of us. And many of the systems that kept us apart and divided us were smashed, and we have to keep them smashed. And we have to create new systems that allows us to embrace diversity, difference, and each other And I like humble leadership. I like that term, humble leadership, because I think we've forgotten humble leadership. And I think we've forgotten to be humble. And I think I shocked someone the other day and I said, I think I feel in a privileged space. And they're looking at me like, why is an Aboriginal person saying they feel privileged? Because for me, when I stopped through this whole process, is I was moving to country and looking up at that big blue sky and looking out across the water and into the green. And I think we forget what's around us, and we've forgotten what's around us, you know, and I feel grateful for the journey that we've taken together. I love the moment we have to stop and share and reflect. I love the moment we have when we stop and think about where we are ourselves inside of a lot of this, because I think sometimes we forget to do that. But coming together in a moment is stopping and listening and feeling. And I'm grateful for people and people who walk beside us, because that's what this is about. And the people that we lean into and fall back on, who will catch us when we're not strong enough, are the ones we want to be beside us. So our journey in the disruption space has been, and watching people transform into a space of how they can reach out to each other. We've had some opportunities to connect women of colour with each other here and take it to the Americans. And so that was really powerful. And these were women of all countries. We've had powerful moments of bringing people together to understand fire. We've had beautiful moments of just working with young people and leading them forward on a journey to manage with their head and their heart and to understand. But mostly all through this and the global network, as we've had Katie and John here with us, who've connected to you, has reached out. And I think that's been the most amazing experience of all, to have you and all in front of us today and all of you across the world. It's people. Sometimes we look to the environment, but sometimes it's the people, because you can't laugh at a beautiful vista. You laugh with friends and you laugh with people. And you can't talk back to a beautiful vista because they're silent. So it's the people of the world is what we are. And the experiences we all have with each other and that connectedness is we need to ground ourselves more in where we are and the place we're in and what was here before so many, many moons past. But the journey we have together is with each other as human, because this is where we need to keep. We need to keep each other strong. We need to reach down and lift brothers and sisters up. We need to walk beside each other. And we need to share each other's pain and laugh with each other's joy, because that's what makes our world spin, is the love of one another and the love of mankind. And it's care for humanity, whether it's our humankind or our animals, because that's the joy in which we all come together. And the systems that have been created are the systems that we can uncreate and make new ones. So I am grateful for the disruption we've had in 2020, although I'm hoping that the year ends quickly. But I think it's made me a different person. It's made me realize the beautiful life I have and grateful for the beautiful life. And I was really lucky to live in Perth in this time. And I think it was one of the safest states in the country. But I think for me and what we've got to do together is not just hope, we do. And we do break down those systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you so much for your words and for your holding and for reaching out and going to all of the communities. Just when you said that your communities responded, "We'll go bush." For me, it was, oh yeah, that's a thing we could do, you know, just to have that capacity and to hear the way that you are working with people and turning towards how we stay in this disruption and look for the gifts. Just really powerful. So thank you. And thank you, Katie and John, for holding this global connection as well. It really, there's so much that we all have to learn from one another. And this kind of deep listening is really important that we continue to do. So I will turn it over to Shobi, and Shobi Lawalata is holding what's called United in Diversity in Indonesia. And Shobi has shared with us and been part of our global community for many years and she's holding many communities in her place as well. So Shobi, how have you been dealing with the disruption, and what are you seeing and sensing locally and in the global social field?
Thank you so much, Antoinette and Carol and John, Katie, Arowana, Otto, for helping us land in this space. And I feel very privileged to be able to share some stories from this part of the world. I actually see some of the members of the community that I've been holding space with. Shanti, she's here, one of our alumni. So these are observations and feelings from Jakarta, Indonesia. We're, I think from a macro perspective, the news that was flashed across all the major websites yesterday was that we effectively went into recession for the first time in 22 years. Some economic contractions and of course some pains relating to the COVID pandemic. But and if you rewind maybe a couple of weeks or a couple of months prior to that, you might have seen also in the news about the law being passed that people feel are endangering protection for people and communities and nature, right? So, but as with any sort of things that you feel are terrible headlines, you always you dig down and you find the gift, as Otto said, the gift of Trump. So I see the gifts as well, right? I see. And I feel that this is actually many opportunities. When the capitalistic economy shrank, I'm still seeing communities finding their own strengths, right? Finding that they are self-capable, that they are self-reliant, that they can lean into and fall back on each other and fall back on the goodness of the earth body to be self-sustaining. And I see this in so many examples across the world. In fact, the community that I brought into our TEDx session, they have a website actually, and I've been checking on it. It's kind of like my little armchair traveling. And so they closed down, right? They stopped visitors from coming. And I was thinking to myself, they know how to do this, right? They've known how to be self-sufficient for hundreds of years, and we should learn from them how to do this. And among our own fellows, our own alumni who are more remote places, not as plugged in to the capital, to the developed communities, they are awakening their own social field, their own social body. They're making new connections and working with each other to plant their own food, to take care of each other. So I think that's a very powerful awakening. Um, and likewise, I think if we unearth the law and the fear of the undoing of environmental and social protections, I think we will find that there's actually a decentralizing, a distributing of power and authority. And to me, that's also an opportunity to actualize the place-based innovation, place-based governance that we can put in place and strengthen um, each of our own ability to sense into our own future. So these are stories that are still unfolding. And of course, naturally, a lot of people are reacting with fear, with fear of the uncertainties, right? Fear of the worst possible outcomes. But um, I'm grateful, hence, for moments like this, and hope to create more spaces like the Gaia journey across the region so that we can lean into and not turn away, lean into these fear, lean into these discomfort, and so that we can find for ourselves what is the future that is waiting, wanting to be born. Um, so that's my feelings and observations from this part of the world, Antoinette and everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Shobi. Thank you, Carol. I feel like we just keep opening the circle and kind of feeling into these different points. And it's just powerful to hear what's coming up in your place as well, Shobi. Thank you for sharing with us. What we'd like to do is to hear a different kind of voice. So a voice from the field, which is Tony, who's holding a musical voice, and he will improv for us with us based on what he's been hearing for our time together so far. Over to you, Tony. Thank you, Tony, for giving us this language to hold our own process of what we just heard as well. So thank you, Tony. I'm sitting with Carol's words still of even just the beginning of what you shared, Carol, that being here together to listen and to talk. So often when I turn to people or I say, I want to talk, I want to catch up, and I'm not bringing in that listen piece first. Even though I feel like it's inherent in conversation, but it's just a subtle shift, and yet it's the shift that exactly what we need. So in this moment, we will turn to each other and practice that. The humble listening, the listening, and then talking. And really what I encourage us to do is to share as if we're each coming as voices from the field, this social field, this global field that we're holding together, and sharing how are we holding the disruption, the many different disruptions that we've been experiencing over these months, how we're moving towards, and perhaps what we're sensing in our local communities and what we are sensing in the global social field. So as we do that, I say this often, but just a reminder that we don't know what each other had for breakfast this morning, let alone our life experiences and all that we may be bringing. So I invite us to just hold that, to hold compassion and the potential of the beings that we're in this room with and the group together. So we will turn to each other, and for the absolute best part of the Gaia experience, where these architectures of connection happen, this is the moment. And we'll turn to each other for about 15 minutes, which is just a beginning. So I encourage us to make these connections and see where they may go. But we'll turn to each other for 15 minutes and come back for harvesting and resonance. So please enjoy your time together, and we'll see you back here in 15 minutes. Just as everyone trickles back in, a thank you to Tony for giving us some accompaniment in if you weren't able to be in a breakout. And I think we are just about back. So a warm welcome back for everybody who has been in breakouts. I hope that you got to enjoy your time together and to share with one another. I know it's never enough, but what we will do to just hear what was coming up for each of us is perhaps just type in the chat, and we'll give just a few moments to harvest and hear from the room what is resonating from your conversations and from our time together. So you can type that directly in the chat. You can also direct message your group if you want to, if you connected with somebody, want to stay in touch. And you can click the participants button at the bottom of the screen if you want to share with voice and video. And you can click the little blue raise hand, and that will signal to us to bring you in. Perhaps from the chat, I can read some as well. So a couple in here from Abby, sad joy. Kieran, the wisdom of Indigenous voices. Young, the resonance, courage, gratitude. Focus on common purpose, not on the differences, and listen open-hearted. I met my emotional support Canadian as promised for traumatized American voters. A sense of hope and connection. Everyone loved hearing from Carol. Sitting in the unknowing and listening to what is emerging. So much possibility, expanding and deepening world. Love. Enrichment and authenticity, vulnerability, honesty. The power of listening deeply like elephants without judgment. There is a need for us to connect and move away from the world of material dependence and disruption. 100-year vision. That the local social field can be creative and still move forward. Beautiful. There's so many wonderful resonance pieces, and I'm just looking to see if anyone does want to share with voice or video. And if you can't figure it out, I will try and bring you in. Or if you unmute yourself, if you really do want to talk. If not, I'll keep reading. No, we can go into resonance practice and just be with what's coming up, and also what is, I just love it. So today we started this first Gaia Journey experience, and we have an image that was shared for us by Rachel Hench, who is one of the members of the team in our community and has been practicing the generative scribing practice developed by Kelvie Bird. And she shared an image with us for us to reflect on this moment in our global community, in our global social field. So I'll call that image up now for us to sit with around a moment of resonance and connect into the image. And the resonance practice is to use this image. If you can make it full screen, if it didn't just become full screen for you, you can. And as you make it full screen, just sitting with it for a moment together and just noticing what you see, what you sense, what you feel, and just sitting with that for a moment together in stillness. And as you continue to sit with this image, you can type directly in the chat using the prompts I see, I sense, I feel. And as you do that, I'll share some of the ones that come up. So using the prompts I see, I sense, I feel. I see clarity emerging, new connections being made. I see darkness and light permeating through. I see clouds and constellations of activity, tiny stars of hope and light coming into being. I feel openness. I see an explosion. I feel movement. I see currents. I sense action. I feel energized. I see points of light, mirrors of the collective. I see the changes. I sense the disruption. I feel the light so emergent. I feel the tumultuous nature of creation. I see opportunity in disruption. I see the waves. I sense a beginning. I feel the connection deeply. I sense the work that needs to be done. Thank you all for this moment of resonance in our community on this image, but on all of the ways that our senses have been percolated, and really just the way that we've been connecting into each other and deeply listening to what's here for us. And I wonder if, Otto, you have some final words for us.
Maybe just an echo or an appreciation from what Carol you shared with us. So the appreciation of the disruption, which can be a gateway to our own deeper levels of being and attention and intention. And the appreciation of what you said, what is in front of us. So often we see what is in front of us maybe as a challenge, as something, right, a problem, a gap to be filled or something like that. But really, if you look at it from a real sense of appreciation, it's a different feeling that it, a different field of connection that opens up through that. And in our group, in our breakout group, we talked about what do we see when we look at the current moment from a 100-year perspective, right? So 100 years from now, what we do right now, what we try to be in service of, what is it? What is that really 100 years from now? And what can such a perspective help us maybe to focus on things that are different now, smaller, kind of maybe more built for the deeper change that we are in the midst of. And when I think about privilege and appreciation, Carol, what you mentioned, what's in my mind, what's present in my mind is that we are the generation that is alive on this planet in the most important decade the planet has ever seen. There was never before a decade in which, depending on what we as a species whether we rise to the occasion, whether we do things or not do things, where those actions or lack thereof have had such a profound impact, not only on the decade itself and on the next generation, but really for the generations to come. So we are alive, we are connected, we are privileged with the opportunity to rise to that occasion, to show up with everything we are. And that's really the deeper intention of the Gaia journey, so that no one can do that alone. We need to help each other to connect with these deeper aspects of our own intention, why we are here on Earth, and what the deeper work is that together maybe we can bring into the world. So that's staying with me, and that was evoked by your words of appreciating, Carol, what is ahead of us.
Thank you, Otto. Thank you, everybody. It has been, I can't believe we're already at the closing of our time, and it feels very much like this is just the beginning. We knew that in starting this up again November 5th, today, well, actually November 6th for some of you, many of you, we are now moving into beginning again, and beginning of this holding again. So we will come together on December 3rd, 4th again, and we will continue to co-shape and create this Gaia journey together, and really step into what is being asked of us and what we're called into. So thank you. Thank you all for being here together. We can stay in touch with the social media, hashtag Gaia Journey. If you haven't yet visited GaiaJourney.org, the essentials of the first 14 weeks are there, including some beautiful highlights, including from Dr. Noel Nanup, who is one of the elders of Noongar country and the Danjuk Kurlini movement as well. So please look for those, and also if you are interested, I saw someone said that they wanted to dive into generative scribing. There are a number of wonderful programs in the U Academy where we can deepen those methods and tools. And some of what we mentioned today is also in ULab, which is ongoing right now. So we will be sharing more information via email. So yes, please continue to look for that. And thank you all for being here and coming together and sharing our time, holding this social field together and beyond, holding our planet together. We can all unmute and say goodbye. We'll see you soon. We'll see you back in December. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
In December.
Thank you.
Adiós. Bye.
Hasta luego.
Adiós, muchas gracias.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Carol. Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you.
See you later.
Thank you for being here.
Bye.
Everyone.
Comenzamos ahora.
Ciao, ciao.
Gracias.
Ciao.
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 Bye, everyone. Bye, Otto.
Bye, John.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye now.
Thank you for being with us. Goodbye and have a great day ahead.
Thank you.
Bye, Joy.
Have a great month, everybody.
Do not be afraid.
Bye, Stefan.
Bye, E.T. Thanks for joining us for a while.
Thank you, guys. I've missed you guys so much. I'm so happy to be back. So happy. And I needed you more than ever at this time. Thank you.
Bye, Shobi. Thanks for your sharing.
Good to see you, Anna.